Hi. Um, Today I'm going to try to fix a antique record player that I have. It's made by the Rex Talking Machine Company out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the handle for the crank on it accidentally got turned the wrong way and cranked too hard, and a spring broke on it, and it started jumping around violently on our tabletop, and now it doesn't work. So I'm going to try taking it apart and see if I can't figure out how to fix this thing. I've never worked on anything like this before. I've never taken this apart. I can't even find anything online. That's why I decided to take this video. And anyway, somehow the spring isn't working, and hopefully we can figure this out together. We can all learn from this. All right, well, here we go. So here's the motor, and got the crankshaft here that we want to turn to crank, and that loads the spring inside of here. As that spins, you see there's a gear up high. In here, there's a gear down low. You got a governor over here. Spins, and then as the let's see if I can get a good shot here. As this spins, these weights, they expand, and when they expand, then these little pads here, my lighting's bad, these little pads kind of rub on this disc, and that disc then, it creates friction, which then sets the speed. And how much of this pad, how far away this pad is controlled by a lever that's on the other side of this. I'll show you that another time, but I gotta take this top plate off in here and start getting inside of this piece to find out what's going on with that spring. I don't know what's wrong with it at all. So I got the top plate off, and here's a better shot than all those gears. A lot of grease in here, and it's pretty dirty. That's the plate upside down. You see you've got these shafts in here that rely on that top plate to hold everything in place. Really dirty. But now I'm going to start taking things slowly apart and get inside there and see what's going on with that spring. I've also got this magnetic bowl. It's really handy for holding small parts so that they don't get lost along the way. Those are the fasteners from these 4 standoffs around here that go into this plate around these points. Alright, gotta get in here and see what's going on. So I've taken the couple of pieces off, put them over here. I got little paper towels down to keep all the grease collected. This piece here looks pretty simple. It's just a gear. I don't think there's really anything wrong with that. Not sure if there's something wrong inside of here yet. So I'm going to take that apart. What I've noticed here is that there's a key in the shaft that's lined up with this screw. There, you can see that better. There's a key flat spot on this shaft that's lined up with this screw, and there's a secondary screw here. I'm going to loosen this up here and take this apart and slide this out, see what's going on. There's some other screws underneath here. On this side, you can see the threads sticking out. That's all inside there, and then that shaft seems to be sliding inside there. But again, I don't know what's going on in there. I don't feel any tension. Everything's loose. So there's no tension in any kind of spring or anything there. And then I noticed there's this little spring right here that's on the crankshaft. It was loose, and there was this piece here was fastened down with those 2 screws. Those don't look like original screws to me. Somebody repaired that, and I'm wondering if that spring is supposed to be clamped down underneath this piece here. It was not, and that could be part of my problem here. I'm not exactly sure what this spring is doing for me, but I'm going to have to play with this a little bit to figure this out. I can't find any manuals online, so I'm kind of stuck here like you, maybe, trying to figure this thing out. We'll learn together. So I went ahead and ran that those 2 fasteners down on that spring. You can see you just got a little bit of the spring. Boy, it's blurry. A little bit of the spring sticking out the other side, and I just Screwed these in, do a couple cranks on this one, and then switch to the other screw and kind of go back and forth between the two until you get it all clamped down there really tight. And then I grabbed my handle here, and I just did a quick test on it, and it works. So put my handle on here, and I can crank this way, and that spring just opens up there just a dear little bit. You see, kind of as I'm moving this handle back and forth like this, you see that spring just shifts just a little bit. So when I go this way, it works fine. But when I try to go back up here, it just locks right down, man. It just chokes right down on that thing. So I think that's my problem. I don't think I have a problem inside my spring box. I think my problem was this brake spring, for lack of another term. And now I got to crank down. So I'm going to put it all back together here and see what happens. Okay, so I finally got the press fit cover off, and there's the spring. You see the spring in here. The spring is actually in good shape. But I was able to get the pin out. Like, this pin goes down inside of here, and what you'll notice here is that there's like a pin that sticks out of the pin, and the camera's like, there we go. If you can notice, one side of the pin is chamfered off. The other side has a little bit of a ledge there. You can kind of see it there. It sticks out, and that ledge there catches into the spring. Down here you see there's a slight hole. I get this, yeah, in here, and that hole then grabs onto that pin. What I found when I opened this, and I've already repaired it, was that this part of the spring here, it was bent backwards. So instead of going in this nice spiral, right about this point here, you can kind of see where it gets a little wacky weird. It was bent completely backwards, and so I had to bend that back. Now you want to be really careful here with this part of this spring doesn't come flying out of the can and the cylinder here. There's a lot of sharp metal in there, so I was using some heavy-duty leather gloves as I did that work. In order to get this apart, what I had to do was I had to take this scratch-awl and stick it kind of up through the bottom opening down there, because with the way this pin's made, you can't pull the pin out with that piece sticking out the side of it. It just doesn't fit through the bushings. So I put this underneath and up, and so it was pushing on this can here, and then I was able to kind of use this anvil here and tap it out. So I tapped on it, and the lid part here just kind of popped up. I wasn't sure how that was going to work, but it worked pretty good. The spring stays in here. It's pretty stable. And then I used these needle nose pliers and these regular pliers here to kind of grab this spring steel and bend it back to where it belonged. The good thing about spring steel is that it's pliable, and yet it has a great memory. Now it seems to have a shape that it should have, where it's going to wrap around that pin and then and stay seated in there. So I'm going to go ahead and try and get this in here, and see now you can see that catch part of the pin is sticking through there, and it's holding on there pretty good. So then as this thing rotates in here, it grabs onto that steel spring and pulls it with it. But if it goes backwards too much, it doesn't do anything. It'll slide around there, but then it'll swing back in here and catch it. So I think I fixed the problem here. What I gotta do now is get this all back together and try it out. But I think I had two problems: the locking spring, and then this internal spring was obviously bent up pretty bad. All right, we'll put it back together and see what happens. Okay, well, I've got the lid back on. I had to tap it down with a hammer to get it to press fit inside there real lightly, not super hard with the hammer, but just nice and light. And then I've got the gear back on and tightened down these two screws, and looking for that key position to get the screw lined up, and then using this depth gauge that I made here to with my measurement device here, and set that right height. I didn't film taking this thing apart, but basically to take it apart, I had to take these two screws off, lift this gear off, and then the pin itself kind of fell down into the housing, and there was an opening, and I could take this and stick it through that opening from underneath the other side and pop the lid off. But it was just a little tap tap to get it to go. Now I'm going to put this all back together here and try it out. Okay, so I cranked it up some with my crank here. I can't go the wrong way because I've got that locked in there, but I can crank it this way. Puts more power into the spring, and she's spinning, doing what she's supposed to. See, this is called the governor right here, right? And as it spins, it begins to create friction on this plate. If I slow this down, see how when it's not spinning, both pads are not touching, but as this thing spins, and that lower pad, right, it comes out there, it gets up to the right speed, it'll make contact, and then it'll have the right amount of friction to stay at the right speed for the record. And there it is, working. See it all, it's coming from that top gear. And looks like it's good. I just plugged it in upstairs and it's working fine. It definitely was the two problems that I had found. One being the locking spring on the crankshaft, and then the internal spring for the motor. Both of those had the problem. The hardest part was figuring out how to get the cylinder apart, where the spring is housed inside. And anyway, that was the biggest challenge. Once I got in there, I could see exactly what the problem was with that spring. And I hope this was helpful for you. And if you have any tips on how to fix these things, create a link here, and we can pull all this together, because I can't find anything out there on this Rex talking machine motor and gearbox, that are gear mechanisms that are in there for it. So thanks for watching.